I present to you the ultimate Dungeons & Dragons portable TV table. So every time I saw one of those amazing tables posted to Reddit or Facebook with projector screens built in for their maps, I always thought, man, I would love to build one for myself. But after I spend a few minutes diving down the rabbit hole online to see what it would take to actually build one, I always ended up giving up on the idea for two main reasons: the cost and the size. I mean, even the cheapest projectors are like $400 to $600, and even though I have a fair-sized house, I simply don't have any place that I could just completely dedicate to a gaming table for D&D, and trying to convince my wife to let me replace the kitchen table with one is not even close to being an option. There's no way I could build a table nice enough for her to accept as her kitchen table, and trying to buy one with a screen in it would be way out of my budget. I mean, if you ask any of my friends and family, they'll tell you I certainly fall into the category of cheap bastard, except for tips, right? Always tip your waitresses and pizza delivery guys. But when I came across this $99 TV during a sale on Black Friday, I just made the impulse buy and told myself it was time to build myself a table. But not just any table, one that has to fit two important pieces of criteria. It has to be cost effective, and most importantly, it has to break down to be portable. So I've accomplished just that with this design, and I'm really excited to share it with you guys today in hopes that it inspires you to build your own versions if, like me, you found either the cost or, more likely, just the pure size and space that a dedicated table takes up to be prohibitive. Okay, first let me show you how this thing works. There are four main sections to this thing. First is the table base with the TV in it. Next, we have the 6 table legs. After that, we have the table extensions. And finally, we have the surface mat. Putting together the table is really simple. Once the table is face down on some carpet, simply take the 6 legs and screw them in. Next, flip the table over. After that, slide the 2 table extensions in place and find the latches underneath to lock them snugly together. Finally, roll out the neoprene mat and work it into place. And just like that, you've assembled the table. All that's left to do is to hook up your laptop or PC and enjoy some killer Dungeons & Dragons or Starfinder with your friends. Okay, now let's talk a bit about the overall project cost, as well as go over some of the pros and cons of the table, as well as some things that I learned from this project that will hopefully help you make one of your own. But first, it's sponsor time. Today's video is brought to you by Kittens. I'm kidding. Today's sponsor is Elderwood Academy, which fits in perfectly with the theme of today's video, as we're talking about building a wooden gaming accessory to make your gaming experience just that much more special. And these guys, well, they make stunning wooden gaming accessories to improve your gaming experience. From their custom leather-bound codex dice towers to their beautiful spell books to hex chests, mini hex chests, deck boxes, and more, Elderwood's handcrafted gaming accessories are simply gorgeous, and everything they make can be 100% completely customized to the exact way you want it, from the exotic woods of your choice to the theme to even customizing the interior inlays. They will make you the exact piece that you've been dreaming of. I'll throw a link down to their lineup below so you guys can go and check them out and customize your own piece. Thank you, Elderwood Academy, for being a part of the Taking 20 team. So the big question everyone wants to know, how much did it cost exactly to build this table? Well, before tax, the table would have cost me $326.46, and my all-in cost to build this table would have been $348.35. Now, I say would have been for two reasons. First, outside of the TV, which ran me $99, the next most expensive part of this project is by far and away the neoprene mat. I did a lot of shopping online for a neoprene mat, and after looking over my options for a few days, I decided I was going to make a purchase at foamorder.com because they not only had by far and away the best selection of colors and thicknesses, but they also had the best price. So I could get my 4mm burgundy tabletop for less than it would cost me to get just a 2mm in black at most of the other online shops. But I'll admit I pulled the YouTuber card and asked if they would mind sending me one for this video, and they did. So 100% full disclosure, I received my neoprene mat for free, but in truth, I was gonna make the purchase there regardless anyways due to their selection and price, and I've also included that cost into the $348 for the video. So I'll throw a link down to them below to the exact mat that I ended up going with, which was a 4mm. Most of the other shops online will only offer a 2mm or a 5mm, and after shopping, of course, I found them to be more expensive than foamorder.com. Okay, so the next big question I think people want to know about the table is, did you install any glass or plexiglass to protect the table? The short answer is no. I decided against protecting the screen with a big layer of glass for a few reasons. One, I simply just didn't like the aesthetic that the glass creates that makes the minis look like they are floating above the screen that I have seen from other builds. Second, I wanted to keep the cost down and just simplify the build. And thirdly, this table is going to go from playing to right into a closet upstairs, so I'm not terribly worried about it in between sessions. And finally, it's a $100 cheap TV table that the sole purpose of the TV is to play Dungeons & Dragons on. I'm not terribly worried if it does start to get a few scratches here and there, and I fully anticipate that to happen over the next few years. Okay, let's talk about the materials, the design, and what tools you'll need to build one for yourselves. When designing this thing, the big issue again was making it portable. So to accommodate for that, I knew I wanted to keep its dimensions as small as possible while allowing the actual playing space to be large enough for books and character sheets to fit comfortably. So to do this, let's start with the base. The base of the table is constructed out of 2x8s, which I trimmed down on a table saw a bit, and the rest of it is made out of 2x4s. The topper for it is a simple piece of 1/2-inch plywood, and I cut a few small chunks of scrap plywood left over to reinforce where the leg plates go into. I started by building out the box for my TV from the trimmed down 2x8s, and then I laminated or glued together 2 additional pieces of 2x8s to make them one solid cross piece that I mounted this awesome, cheap, and very thin VESA mount to that I found online, by the way, link to that down below. By using a very thin VESA mount, I didn't have to worry about getting the TV to sit flat in the table, and it worked out perfectly. Next, I added pocket holes with my Craig jig. Okay, this is one aspect of the build that isn't totally necessary, but that I highly recommend. Pocket holes are a very simple, guys, like anyone can do them, way to create a strong butt joint, aka where one piece of wood butts up to another. Typically, you would have to make a very complicated mortise and tenon or even a cross slap to secure a butt joint in place, as driving screws into the end of a piece of wood is a big no-no, as the piece of wood is basically a bunch of fibers like the end of a Twizzler. So if you just pop a screw in there, it separates the wood and can cause it to literally just fall apart. But by using a Craig jig to make pocket holes, your screws run with the grain on one piece and firmly into the side grain of your second piece, and it is rock solid. Though creating pocket holes leaves us with these big ugly gaps on the surface of our wood, it's on the underside of the table, so it really doesn't matter at all. Now, there are several different types of Craig jigs available, but I'll throw a link down to the exact one you want, the R3 Junior. It's almost the cheapest one they even offer, but it still comes with a clamp, which you're going to need. Additionally, I'm a big believer that you'll be able to borrow everything you need to make your own version of a table like this, but this might be the one tool that you have to just buy if you can't find someone to borrow it from. This might end up being added expense, and so you should budget for that accordingly. For the table extensions, I cut a sheet of MDF down to size, marked out the area of the TV, and cut it away with the jigsaw. I want to stress to you guys that I could have made these cuts with a circular saw, a router, or a jigsaw. The jigsaw is just the easiest tool to use, but if you're making your own table, whatever you can find to borrow can work. After that, I took 4 thin pieces of wood and trimmed down their edges so that they would sit flush with the edges of the MDF table extensions, and then glued them to the bottoms with wood glue. I lined up the MDF toppers and added a few cabinet latches so that the 2 extensions would hold together and not slide around once they were in place. All that was left to do was to lay out the huge neoprene mat over the table and trim down the edges and cut out the middle to reveal the TV. This was one of the hardest steps in the process because the neoprene does stretch and shift a bit, so getting nice clean lines became almost an impossible task. Eventually, I gave up the razor for a pair of scissors, which seemed to work a little bit better, but still left me with a mat that wasn't close to perfect, but still good enough. And then the final step to complete the table was to cut down the pre-finished select pine trim I bought for both the edges and for the top surrounding the 2x8s on the TV frame and glue them into place. I liked using these more expensive trim pieces as they were the only bits of wood that are actually seen when the table is put together, and so having really nice squared up boards ready to go took all of the pressure off of trying to square them up perfectly myself without having an expensive jointer and planer. And as a final note, I decided not to round them over with a router, which would have certainly given them a more finished and polished look, because I don't really want my players constantly leaning on the table topper since it extends past the base underneath. Okay, what would I change? Honestly, for just a portable table like this design, not much. There was perhaps a way to cut down on the base weight by using one less section of the 2x4s, but beyond that, I'm pretty happy with how it all came out. I mean, does it have cup holders? No, but a few clip-on cup holders on Amazon should fix that up. Also, I didn't cut a hole in the table for the cables to connect to the TV underneath to the laptop via HDMI, but I don't think taking the time to line up the neoprene with the table hole really would have been worth it versus just running the cables to the side of the table. Or I might even just pick up a wireless HDMI unit that I scoped out on Amazon for about 50 bucks. Links to that down below to see what I'm talking about. If anything, I might go back and add some sort of Velcro straps underneath or a bit of rope to slide and hold the legs under the bottom when the table is being stored. But really, that's about it. My favorite part about the build was one that I honestly didn't think about at all until I had already built the table, and that's that my TV has speakers built into it. So of course the HDMI transfers sound from my laptop as well, and so now I'll have the opportunity to put together a few YouTube playlists of music to add some cool fight music and ambience to my home game that I really haven't done in a few years. Also, because you can run 2 instances of Fantasy Grounds on one PC/laptop, I can go in and set up any maps that I want for the evening and simply minimize them. So during game time, I just need to double click on them to have them pop up all ready to scale. So that's a really, really great feature. And because I'm a big user of D&D Beyond, I don't actually have to come to the table with any books, just the laptop. So having multiple tabs open with monster stat blocks at once on D&D Beyond and tokens and maps, as well as a simple one-click initiative tracker from Fantasy Grounds, everything I could want is right at my fingertips. Not to mention the neoprene mat is basically a giant mouse pad, so working my laptop with a mouse is really convenient. Overall, I plan to be using this table for the next 1 to 3 years until my wife and I end up moving into a new house, one that I will make sure has a more dedicated area for a more permanent D&D table. Hopefully by then, I'll be a little bit of a better woodworker and I'll have enough time using this table to know all the little things I'll want in a nicer, more expensive, and more permanent version. So what I really want to ask you guys is if anyone here has built their own virtual map gaming table for Dungeons & Dragons. And if you have, what are some of the things that you like or dislike about it that you would change? And did you learn anything from the process that might help someone else in the comments that is thinking about building their own version of a D&D table? I want to give a huge shout out to all of the amazing patrons over at welcomeadventures.com. Because of you guys, I can keep making videos like this, and for that, I'm just incredibly grateful. If you guys enjoyed this video, you want to support more content like this, Welcome Adventures is a great place to do it. You can pick up tons of rewards like new maps every month. You can meet with me for just $5. We do a monthly hangout, or there's even a possibility for jumping in a game with me, because I'm really considering adding a second and maybe even a third patron game. So if something like that interests you, be sure to check out welcomeadventures.com. You can jump in and game with me. If this is your first time here and you love role-playing games as much as I do, I'd love to have you subscribe. Every week I put out new videos on GM tips, player tips, tutorials, and more. So if that sounds like something you might be interested in, just hit that subscribe button down below and come join us. Thank you guys so much for watching. My name is Cody, and may your games be filled with awesome memories and even better friends. I'll catch you guys next time.
Adina, your stupid fat tail is just wagging.
This is going in the video. Moose!
Adina.
Call Zeus over there.
Zeus, come here. Come big boy. Here's my big boy, my old man. I give you one cheese cracker and just roll out.
Yeah.